The search for the Bob Huggins replacement at West Virginia continues, and Mountaineer Paul and I are going to discuss it right after the intro. What is going on, Mountaineer Hoops fans and college basketball fans? My name is Couz.
And my name is Mountaineer Paul.
And we present to you
Hoops from the Hills, baby.
What is going on out there in Hoops land, Mountaineer fans and college hoops fans? We are here today to talk to you and give you we're just basically just going to have a chat here today, guys. We're going to have a chat about some potential candidates to replace Bob Huggins as the coach at West Virginia. We all no need to rehash what happened with the Bob Huggins situation. We all know he got arrested for DUI. We all know he resigned. And we all know the Mountaineers are in search for a new coach. There's been a lot of names popping up all over social media, all over various articles and reports, message boards. There's probably been 24 names come up, just in some way, shape, or form. So Paul and I are just going to kind of talk about a few of these guys and give our thoughts on each one, the likelihood that they would actually be a candidate. So, Paul, what are your thoughts, man? Who's the first guy that comes to mind as far as, candidates and names that have popped up in this search?
Well, I think a lot of people have what's the way to put this? Unrealistic expectation that, we're going to get a Joe Mazzulla or possibly a Jay Wright. Guys like that are, one in a million head coaches anyway, right, that have had extraordinary experience in Jay Wright's situation or just in the Joe Mazzulla situation. He obviously, Brad Stevens saw something in him with only a 43-17 record at Fairmont State, brings him on as an NBA assistant, and inside of 2-3 years gives him the head coaching job. It's right. Extremely rare. Joe Mazzulla has something about him that I wish maybe we would have noticed before the Boston Celtics did, but right. That's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, people keep wanting to say, hey, you got to call him, And I'm not saying they won't, but Joe Mazzulla has made it clear multiple times he has no interest in coaching college basketball. That's the reason he took the NBA job in the first place. And even Bob Huggins in a press conference one time said he had a conversation with Joe Mazzulla. And Joe Mazzulla said it was his goal to coach in the NBA. That was what he wanted to do, and now he's got it. So why would he leave that and go back to college? Something he really, he was only head coach in college 2 years. So apparently there was something about that he wasn't real, he didn't like that much. Maybe he didn't like the recruiting aspect of it. I don't know. I'm not going to try to speculate, but there was something about the NBA he prefers over college, and that's where he's at now. So I kind of wish West Virginia fans would get off the Joe Mazzulla thing because it's not going to happen. I'm just telling you, it's not. It's like a 1 in a million chance, if not worse, that he's the coach at West Virginia.
Yeah, and I mean, is he the best coach on the floor we've ever had? Yeah, we can at least say that he's been the coach on the floor for West Virginia. No other school can say that. Unfortunately, he's been recognized for his abilities elsewhere. Maybe there's a shot down the road. People said, hey, look, they almost got rid of him after they went all the way to the conference finals this past year. So that wishy-washy part of it is what people have honed in on. But he's got the job. There's another year ahead, and he's not going to give up on that job unless somebody makes him or, cuts it off for him. So.
Right, exactly. I agree with that 100%.
And maybe in the future, you never know what could happen with West Virginia and Joe Mazzulla. Sure, down the line.
Yeah, maybe he gets an itch he wants to scratch at some point, right?
Yeah, he's really young.
One thing I've not heard anybody talk about that I was thinking about the other day when I was driving by this whole situation is with Joe Mazzulla. People have to remember he's from Rhode Island. He's from the northeastern part of the United States.
Look where he
Boston,
landed.
he's at Boston. he may feel more comfortable in that part of the country, you know?
Yeah, it's a great
So
point.
that may play a huge role, you know, and, you know, he's got a family. He's got a wife and kids. All that plays a role in all this stuff too. So
For
he
sure.
seems perfectly happy where he's at. We need to just support that and try to get that out of our head that he's coming to West Virginia.
If you guys are not subscribed to Hoops from the Hills, we ask that you do so. Please drop a comment below and let us know how you feel about some of these coaches we're naming and talking about. And please like the video as well, guys. We would love to feed the algorithm, get this video out to a wider audience. We appreciate that, guys.
Thank you for that, Paul. Guys, we're getting really close to having 1,000, so those subscriptions really matter to us right now. But the next name, Paul, I want to talk about is another name that I feel is probably very highly unlikely, almost unattainable, and that's Jay Wright, the former coach at Villanova, has since retired and is now a broadcaster and he's an analyst, and he's not a broadcaster but an analyst, and he's great at it. He's a
Very
fantastic analyst, and I just don't know. And it's my understanding, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding that he left the game because he didn't like the current culture. He didn't like NIL. He didn't like the transfer portal. He didn't like any of that stuff. So he got out.
Mm-hmm.
And why would he come back in it unless it was for a huge amount of money and I don't even know that would bring him back.
It would be for the Villanova. It would be for the Villanova job if he came back. He loves that university. He still has a title there as assistant to the president. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but it's kind of one of those titles you give your greats, like Huggins probably would have had after he would have retired. Just really sad to think about. But yeah, so Jay Wright he's got some kind of title there where he's still affiliated with Villanova.
Okay.
The battles that Villanova and West Virginia had in the Big East, and just there was I would say there was a small rivalry there for a while. Maybe not from the Villanova side, but I felt that way. And I think there may even be some feeling of like he's betraying them if he would go to a West Virginia based on that. But not only that, it's just that Villanova is so much a better basketball job than West Virginia, and he could have that job back if he wanted it. No matter who's coaching there, he's just been that good for them.
Right.
You know, the run he had there rivaled Mike Krzyzewski at Duke. It rivaled what Bill Self has done at Kansas. I mean, he's literally the elite of the elite. Like he's the 1% of the 1% type coach.
He's a Hall of Famer. I mean,
he's more successful than any coach we've ever had.
Yeah, true.
Including Hugs.
That's right, because he's won 2 national titles and he's been to 4 Final Fours. Huggins had 2 Final Fours, and Wright did it in less time. I mean, he's 7 or 8 years younger than Hugs is.
Yeah.
So you're right. He's definitely one of the all-time greats, no doubt about it. And it would
be a slam dunk.
Yeah, I just don't see him coming out of. I don't want to say nice cushy job, but compared to coaching college basketball, it's a nice cushy job. To go back to the rat race, the chaos, whatever you want to call it, that is college hoops. But you know, it's basically a 365 day a year job. To be honest with you,
yeah, it is
because of the transfer portal and because of NIL and because of all the recruiting and constant, you know. And I think he just got tired of all that stuff.
Agreed.
The next name is another name that most West Virginia fans would love to have on the sidelines. In this case, back on the sidelines, and that's John Beilein. That's another name we've seen pop up a lot. There was even a screenshot that you and I both saw that is now floating around on the internet amongst the interwebs somewhere of a DM that someone had. We don't know who originated the DM, but someone had a DM conversation with Patrick Beilein, John Beilein's son, about, hey, would your dad be interested in coming back? And his answer was basically they just need to call him, right? Which led a lot of people to think, hey, John Beilein's interested in coming back. We don't know for sure if that's the case. But what are your thoughts on John Beilein and his potential to come back and coach the Mountaineers?
Well, to be honest, I think that he's attainable. I really do. I think he would be on his end of things. It's just speculation on my part, things I've put together. I think he's probably interested. He's not doing much. But I think Wren has a different vision for the program, you know. And if we were going a shorter term look at this whole thing, I think John Beeline is probably the perfect candidate. You can't really name a better one in the short term, but he's 70 years old, right around Hugs' age. I think, today's game is probably a younger man's kind of game anyway. Like a guy like Jay Couz was able to thrive in the NIL way because he's a salesman. He can talk. He's a good coach as well. We need guys like that have a lot of energy and a lot to give to the game. I'm not saying that John Beeline couldn't step in those doors and people wouldn't give him the same kind of money and credit as Hugs, but I don't think, it's just my guess, but I don't think Ren Baker is looking that direction.
Right. And I was when I first heard the idea of John Beeline, I was excited about it, and I would still be excited were it to happen. But the more I think about it, the less I think, or the less intriguing it becomes. And here's the why. Now, when you look at John Beeline's track record, obviously he's one of the all. I wouldn't put him on the same level as a Jay Wright necessarily, but he's definitely the next tier down.
He's like a Hugs.
Yeah, he's one of the most successful coaches of all time. And when you look at every team he coached at, he was there for about every Division I team he's coached at: Canisius, Richmond, West Virginia, Michigan. I mean, obviously he's a great coach, one of the all-time greats, probably the next level down from the Jay Wrights, the Bill Selfs, whatever. Maybe even you could even argue he's as good, if not better, than Hugs in some cases. Some people will argue he's better, because I'm not going to go that route. I think Hugs is maybe slightly better. But it's kind of 6-1, half dozen the other. I mean, they both had great careers. Both went to 2 Final Fours. Neither one have won a national title. So there's actually a lot of similarities between these two guys. But when you look at Beeline's overall record as a coach, he's been he coached a lot of small schools as well before he got into Division I. But his Division I, he went to Canisius. He coached at Canisius, then Richmond, then West Virginia, then Michigan.
Right.
He was at Michigan the longest. I think he was there for about 12 seasons or so. He was at West Virginia for 5, Richmond for 5, Canisius for 5. But here's some of his his record and whatnot. His overall record: 754 wins, 425 losses. His record as a Division I coach: 571 and 325, which is 64% or close to 64% winning percentage. He's been to 13 NCAA tournaments over 27 seasons, which is a pretty good track record. 2 Final Fours, and he didn't win it, but he did play for a national, or coach for a national title a few years ago at Michigan. But just a phenomenal coach. I mean, we all remember him at West Virginia. We all remember that team with Kevin Pittsnoggle, Joe Hairbear, Deshaun Butler, I think, was a freshman maybe on that team.
Mike Gansey.
His son Patrick was on that team. Just really good players. And he recruited Deshaun Butler to West Virginia. A lot of people don't realize that, but he did. He recruited Joe Mazzulla to West Virginia, Darius Nichols. Remember, John Beeline got those guys to Morgantown. Now, but here's the thing about John Beeline, and most Mountaineer fans will probably remember this. He's a system coach. Okay? You have to think a lot more. He runs a lot more sets. It's all about passing, shooting, and defense. Basically.
High-octane offense.
It's high-octane, but it's very systematic. There's a specific way you have to do everything, right? There's no street. It's not like a street ball mentality, which I'm not saying Hugs is a street ball coach, but it's more of that than what Beeline does. The way it was said to me, I actually had the privilege of meeting Darius Nichols one time, and the way he explained it, I asked him the difference between the two. The way he explained it to me was this. He said, John Beeline's practices are fun, but the games are really hard because you have to think a lot more with his style of play. With Huggins, it's the opposite. Practices are extremely hard because of the conditioning and how hard he is on you. But the games are fun because he's more free-flowing and lets you, kind of do your own thing, so to speak, a lot more than what Beeline did. So I thought was a pretty good synopsis of the differences. And I don't know, and when you look at his track record, every school he's been at, for the most part, I think the only exception may have been Richmond, but the other schools he coached at, including West Virginia and including Michigan, he had losing records in his first season because it takes at least a year, sometimes 2, to implement his system. And if he's 70 years old, do we, you know what I mean? And he's only here on a short-term basis anyways, and you've got this really talented transfer portal class here, that could potentially be wasted on a system coach, that maybe John Beeline would not be a great hire. What are your thoughts to that?
It's a really in-depth look at it. Well, keep in mind the age of this team. I would say, if I were going to look at the other end and try to combat what you just said,
yeah, and that's
I'm not saying I don't agree, but the age of this team, we've got a lot of fifth year, almost nothing but fifth year guys on this, especially in the starting rotation.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think having that much time in college, you see a lot of different stuff. I definitely think they would learn it easier than your average class. So, if he were hired, that's something I would look to and hope. But very concerned on the part of you with that. I think he does run an intricate offense with a lot of back cutting. It's really an offense that was formulated for teams that didn't have as much talent as the team they were going against, which is why it was successful at Richmond and at West Virginia with the kids that we had. None of those kids played in the NBA for any amount of time. It's really worth noting. A lot of people thought Pittsnoggle was going to be, he was just 20 years too early.
Yeah.
If he was in today's game, he would be a first, second round pick. Promise. But unfortunately, Beeline was ahead of his time with that offense. Very similar to Rich Rod.
Yeah.
He and Rich Rod are so similar in so many ways, it blows my mind.
And they were here at the same time, basically.
They're at the same time, gone at almost the same time to the same place.
Michigan. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah, I hated Michigan for a while there. We got a couple of their players, but only one of them was really good.
One silver lining, so to speak, of bringing him in and him being able to retain this transfer class. And that's Andy Kennedy, current coach at UAB. He's a Hugs disciple, coached under Hugs at Cincinnati. What are your thoughts on Andy Kennedy?
I read in a couple articles that West Virginia needs to make a clean break from Hugs and the tree. And maybe that's true. But were they to go that route, outside of Mick Cronin, this is probably the guy, right? That's probably had, the most success that's available. And Mick Cronin's not available, but Mick Cronin is by far the best coach in the tree, along with maybe a couple other guys you can mention. Andy Kennedy is a good coach. He's not an elite coach. At least he hasn't shown to be yet. Now, he's also a guy you could say has always coached at kind of off-brand places like Cincinnati for a year after Hugs left. UAB is obviously not an easy place to win at, but he has done it. I love the kind of players he recruits and the kind of athletes he puts on the court. He really goes after, think of John Morant. That type of athlete is those explosive, leaping ability point guards that can score. He loves them. I think it would be exciting to see what he could do at West Virginia, who has more, better facilities, more money in a Big 12. So huge step up over what he had at Cincinnati after Hugs left, especially, and filling those shoes, and would probably be the only guy that could ever say that he followed Hugs twice anywhere.
Yeah.
So I think he would be what you would consider a safe choice. I don't think I could get excited about it. It's not something that I would hate.
Yeah. Well, when you look at his record, I mean, he filled in for Hugs when Hugs left Cincinnati. He coached one season there. It was 21-13, 8-8 in the conference, which was the Big East at the time. Then he left and went to Ole Miss. And Ole Miss, he spent, I think it was around 12 years or so at Ole Miss. Compiled a record of 245 and 156, playing there in the SEC. A lot of winning seasons. Several trips to the, 2 trips to the NCAA tournament. Several NIT appearances. So, pretty successful run. It's not spectacular. Not a lot of NCAA tournament appearances, but several 20-win seasons in there.
Yeah, and Ole Miss is a tough place to win. It
is.
That is a football school.
Absolutely.
At least at West Virginia, we can say we're closer to. I mean, we're becoming closer to being a basketball school as things go, but we're a football school.
Right.
But I mean, we also have a basketball program that gets a lot of attention,
Mhm.
unlike Ole Miss. You
Right.
know,
Great point.
so I don't think that I think the fact that he won at Ole Miss is a credit,
Yeah.
because look where they're at now. I mean, they had to go hire Chris Beard.
He's been at the UAB 3 seasons so far. He's compiled a record of 78-25, which is a 76% winning
That's
percentage.
incredible. Yeah.
Great. 3 straight 20-win seasons, 22-7, 27-8, and 29-10. Was made it to the NCAA tournament, the 21-22 season, and then made it. The runner-up was the runner-up in the NIT this past season. So he's only got what, 3 NCAA tournaments on his resume, but something I pointed out on social media to somebody with UAB. UAB's in a conference that you basically have to win your conference to even get in the tournament. You know what I mean? They don't get a lot of at-large bids if they were giving away at-large bids for Conference USA teams, or at least a lot of them, UAB would have been in 3 years in a row probably, or at least 2. So, and a lot of people argued that they should have gotten in this year. I mean, they were 29-10. They won almost 30 games and still got left out of the tournament. So, it's hard to make the tournament when you're
That's wild.
when you're coaching for those kind of teams, because you basically have to win your conference tournament to get in. And I guess they didn't do that.
Yeah, he would definitely be the safe choice.
Yeah, they finished second, and third. So, it may not be a sexy pick to some people, but I think it'd be a solid pick. Does it excite me? I wouldn't say it excites me, but I wouldn't hate it either. Well, guys, let us know what you think about these coaches on our list. Do you think any of these are legit candidates? And which one do you think is the most likely, if any, to get the call from A.D. Renbaker at West Virginia to be the next head man for the West Virginia basketball program? Guys, don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to sub us up. Hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to drop that comment below, like I mentioned, and share it out with your friends, guys. Let them know about Hoops from the Hills, because we're trying to get to 1,000 subs. We're getting closer and closer and closer, but we need you to share it out and let people know about us here to help us grow. With that being said, guys, we want to thank you for tuning into this episode. The show is over, and we are out.